good to see you.
Good to see you too. Have you been able to make it through this lovely winter we've been having so far?
It's been light here in Chicago, and I've been fortunate enough to travel during the times it hasn't.
Ah,
So, yes, I think I'm making it, but I know I'm gonna miss it soon as it gets hot, hot, hot in August.
did you go anywhere warm?
Yes, I had a wedding in Jacksonville, Florida, and then right when the snowstorm hit, I went to Boston for a reunion.
Cool. Were you stranded
Yeah.
there?
Almost. I don't know. I just sometimes things work in your favor. If you stress out enough, it does.
Absolutely. I've learned to just roll with the punches. If there's things that are out of my control, I mean, just getting emotionally upset about it doesn't get you anywhere, right?
Yeah. And definitely, like, I think people worry, and I feel like, yes, worry, but also no, like, things happen for a reason, and you just do your best and, see where life takes you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Pallavi, for being here today. I'm so excited to feature you on our Women in Tech and Their Money Stories series. Uh, for those of you that are tuning in, we had the pleasure of meeting through a Penn State Alumni Association event here in Chicago. Obviously, you can tell that I'm quite older than you are, but I'm really excited
Not
to
by
have
much.
all of you here today because she's one of the youngest gals that I've had the honor to interview. And I think we need to hear from your perspective as well, because I want to be very thoughtful and conservative and considerate of the different women that I'm representing on this series. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to kick it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, first off, thank you for even thinking about reaching out to me or having me as a voice on your series. I am very fortunate to actually have a networking event go somewhere. So that's also thanks to you. For those of you who don't know, Mel actually coordinated the networking event as well and does a lot of the coordination for the Alumni Association here in Chicago.
That's true.
So thank you for both of those things, one for coordinating, one for having me, and also just being so polite and asking. Um,
Thank
that
you.
has been great.
I appreciate the compliments.
I have more to give, but I'll save that for another time, for another series. Um, well, to everyone out there, my name is Pallavi, and I am a Penn State alum. I'm wearing my Penn State colors to just
Yay, we
show you
are.
my pride. Um, and we're kind of talking after a little bit of a loss with Wisconsin basketball, so I did have to represent. But I'm here, and I am currently a program manager for C360 and analytics at a wonderful organization called Constellation Brands. If you don't know what Constellation Brands does, I would look on the back of your Svedka bottles or, take a look at your Corona and some of your Woodbridge wines. But they're a great organization. I think it's definitely worth a Google to see some of their journeys in some of the brand attribution and acquisition of their different labels. And on top of that, I have experience coming from consulting. I worked with management consulting, analytics, and AI. That was previously with Mu Sigma, and I recently just came off of Tridence Incorporated. And I have been working with offshore analytics as well as working in CPG strategy with prior roles in product management, working with some financial modeling, some strategic revenue management, and marketing in a whirlwind of industries, CPG and retail to be the most recent.
Okay. That was a mouthful, first and foremost.
Oh, I probably butchered it too. It's been
No,
a
no, no,
great
no, no, no.
opportunity so far.
No, but for those of us who aren't in the tech world, and one of the reasons I created this series was to actually learn. So can you maybe explain a little bit more like what program manager within analytics What does that mean? Like from a
Yeah.
like a real easy like child explanation.
Sure. I will try to do my best because honestly, the organization within Constellation that I'm a part of is called DBA, Digital Business Acceleration. And it's a recent organization that is built to grow the overall organization. The main gist of the work that I'm doing in the organization or sub-organization that I'm a part of is an agile methodology and constantly doing minimum value products. I think that's what MVP stand for. But essentially, what you're doing is you're constantly iterating and growing and putting something out there and learning from your mistakes or your successes. And what each kind of product in that MVP is essentially what we are working on. So
Okay.
I'm working within a marketing organization, and my product here is the C360 analytics. And basically, me and my boss, who is the product owner, are responsible for delivering value with either tools or capabilities, and some reporting or some sort of insight. And we're trying to take that and based off of the data and architecture and data science methodologies, we're trying to take that and provide value to our marketing organization. And maybe that's not the babiest way of saying
but
it.
I understood that a
But
lot
yeah,
better.
it's a lot of consulting essentially,
Right.
but in-house in an organization. So it is all of it is under the CBI or Constellation Brands umbrella.
Very cool. Very cool. So is it fair to say that you work with a lot of women?
I work with a big variety of people within the organization. I've been fortunate that the DBA organization itself has a lot of great female leadership. However, my specific team itself could use a lot of diversity, but they are very warm gentlemen that I work with, and they've been doing a great job in trying to include me in all of the processes and also doing a great job in having someone new on their team too.
No, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I know that we see just in general across the board, not a lot of women in STEM, a lot of women in technology. And one of the reasons I was really excited to interview you is that we're starting to see that shift happening. I mean, I would be the first to say we're still very far behind. And it's something I also see in financial services too, right? So, but it's exciting to hear that things are hopefully moving in a positive direction.
Yes. And I do think a lot of organizations are also making that shift because
they have to.
They have to, not just like law, but because a lot of companies have also learned and are learning about the benefits of having a diverse workforce. And that includes like gender equality, and that includes having a team made up of not just one, like let's say like Caucasians or Indians, for example, South Asians, but a diverse group of people. And not just does it, fit your quota, but there's a reason that quota is there, which is to provide more avenues of thought. And also, like I think there's also that idea of interrelationships that women can also bring to the table on top of the existing structure that men can bring. And I also want to be inclusive of LGBTQIA like individuals too. So I think every single layer and that intersectionality is very important in an organization, whether it is corporate or a friendship. I think it's very important.
I'm happy you touched on that. I kind of grew up in a lily white neighborhood in a small town in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we had like one token family from each different area of the world.
I lived in Pittsburgh.
Okay, yeah. So you very much know this. And So obviously we went to Penn State. I was like, oh, okay, there's a little bit more here, right? But it was still very much, I would say, African American based. I don't know if that was what it was like kind of when you were there, with maybe a little bit of Asian flair. But
You
it
know,
wasn't.
there are
Go ahead.
so many pockets at Penn State, and I still feel like I spent an extra 2 years in college, and I still feel like I hadn't explored all what Penn State and its culture and its students
No.
had to offer.
Well, and you hit on the right word, pockets, right? But when I went
It's
to go work
true.
for Goldman Sachs, and we had a sales team of over 200 people from all walks of life, I made some of the most amazing relationships, friendships, people that I still talk to today. And I loved hearing from their perspective, their culture, their thought process, right? I mean, it just blew my mind, that I had been kind of sheltered, if you will, from all the magnificent that people are. And so I'm thrilled that corporate America and society in general is making more of a effort to be open-minded to crossing of cultures and people and
Yeah,
religion. So
absolutely. And, working with such different groups, I mean, groups meaning like I've worked in client environments. I worked in my own company environment and then different companies. And then I've had offshore team members, not to say I've, traveled the world, but there's the idea of a culture map that's out there, and you really learn and put into practice how different people are. And with the small exposure that I've had, it's you're surprised to learn that so many people think so differently from you.
mm-hmm.
But not only do you value what other people bring to the table, you start valuing what you bring to the table as well. And that has been such a growing up aspect for me,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you are one of like one of two Indian people in your fourth grade. And yes, your best friend is the other Indian person, but you also realize like you try to fit in when, and I have been thinking recently too, is that all those things that made me be different and I tried to change about myself growing up have been the identifiers of what has made me feel me
Mm-hmm.
growing up. And they have also been something that I'm trying to really learn to fine tune and actually present it to the table instead of kind of hiding it back.
No, fantastic. And please, I mean, be the loudest duck, right? One of the books that I had to read back in the day. If you have a good idea, promote yourself for sure. Absolutely. So that leads me right into our first question, which is, now that you've been out in the real world, working for corporate and having been with a couple different companies and
Mm-hmm.
exploring their culture and whatnot, why don't you tell us what you think is your largest success to date? and
Okay.
I loved what you mentioned in our LinkedIn post, in the sense that, I mean, this woman is amazing. She took like 30 courses in 1 year, while working 3 jobs. Like,
I can't believe I
overachiever
did
right
that,
here,
honestly.
overachiever. So, how do you top that?
I don't know. I feel like comparing success is such a difficult thing to do. And I don't know if we should be comparing achievements, but I would like, and again, this is such a normal question to ask. So please don't feel like
No, so no,
I'm
no,
saying
no.
like I can't.
How about
But
what are you most proud of then? How about that?
yeah, I think one way to think about it is personal achievements. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously your career achievements have a personal angle as well. So I was thinking about my personal achievements, especially with the LinkedIn post. But then you think about what made you grow so much as a professional. And one thing I can think of is a design thinking workshop that I had soon as I entered the workforce. And if I can give you a little story about how it
Please.
was, it it was quite interesting. And again, I'm very new to the workforce at this point, and I was working with 2 account leads and my manager at the time to conduct interviews of VPs and analysts for a design thinking workshop. Okay. And that's essentially evaluating a need, figuring out what people want, what is feasible, etc. And then this is essentially a precursor to a full-blown project if it goes that way. And so I had to go down to Mexico, and I thought my Spanish was great. I had years of it in high school, and I took some classes in college. I still have the Duolingo app on my phone. You realize that it wasn't enough. It wasn't for me. And
you know what? I'm so happy you say that, because I was in honor Spanish in high school.
Yeah.
Took my first Spanish class in Penn State, and I was like, I don't know anything.
Where is it all? I have no idea.
Right?
Yeah. And that's kind of how I felt, because not only when you go into like a place where that's their native language, you're super like nervous, clammy. And I ended up meeting all the people that I interviewed, and they were all in such high positions. They were in the supply chain and procurement arm of the Latin America business at the time. And it was embarrassing. So I just didn't say anything in Spanish. I was just like, hola. And I tried it with the accent and everything. And at that point, I was like, all right, let me just speak in English. It's comfortable. But I did learn a lot. Aside from that, I didn't know Spanish. I was working with the onshore team, who are these 2 account leads and also account leads. So they're much older than I am, have a vast amount of experience, and were really smart individuals. I'll also say I worked with the offshore team, and we were all working nonstop. We were planning during the evening, making edits at night. We were executing during the day. And like networking and sales during the breaks. And then we do it all again the next day. And so on top of this, like I was saying, there was a lot of language barriers, and we were on someone else's turf. We were in Mexico. I had never been to Mexico before them. I saw cactus for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was exciting.
We don't have those in Pennsylvania.
No, and the entire process actually was exciting, not just seeing the cactus, but just being so heads down and focused. It was a really great opportunity. Deepak Jose and Jashish Singh were the 2 account managers, and they really threw me into it. I don't know whether they had confidence in me or not, but probably it was good for someone else to speak during that event other than them. But it was, at that point, I knew like I really found excitement in brainstorming and thinking through things and strategizing, and they were doing that. I really had wanted to be them. But I think the challenge that comes up here is that I constantly wondered if I was equipped to be in the position I was. I was very new in the workforce. I thought I spoke Spanish and I didn't. I didn't know if I was in a position to positively affect my clients, let alone provide value to my company at the time, which was Mu Sigma. But as I like to say, and we talked about a little bit earlier, things sometimes happen for a reason. And we ended up gaining enough trust to kick off a multi-stage, and you could say multi-contract as well, strategic revenue management partnership. And it was incredible, honestly, like to see.
You had a hand in it.
I'm sorry?
You had a hand in it.
I don't know how big my hand was in it or how deep my hand was in it, but it was, I would say, like, I contributed to it, and it felt really amazing. And the reason I would say that it's a career success was not because the partnership ended up going through and that was the success. It was because I was challenged and I thought I couldn't do it, but I did. And that's kind of a lot of what success looks like to me and I'm so eager to find more opportunities like this where a real challenge comes about and it's seemingly like I can't do it, no way. But then you do, and
Yeah.
you are like wowed at the process when you overcome it. And it really makes you think about your capabilities and how amazing the human mind is, and all that more, all that more that can come. And you're going to feel the same way, and you're constantly going to be challenged, and you're then hopefully going to turn around and be like,
What's
I
next?
did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I did that. What's next, right?
Yeah, yeah, give me
And no
more.
wonder, and no wonder you're so grateful to your team leaders, because they basically threw you into a fire and said, "Let's see
Yeah,
if she can get out." And I think that
I
goes
don't know if they knew it.
well, I would have to think that they hired you for a reason. They
Yeah,
knew enough about you to take you on said trip. And I mean, this leads right into my question number two, which is lessons learned. And through that whole story, you gave us several of them,
yeah.
right? Sometimes you think you know more than you do, you know,
Yes, I mean,
Spanish,
yes,
and you don't.
yeah. Sometimes
You know,
humility is
you
the
don't
biggest
think you're capable of
learning.
something, and you put it your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then you come out like, yeah, we closed the deal. I kicked butt. And
Yeah.
then, also, and feel free to add some more, but just now your limits are like, there are none, you know?
Yeah, I'd like to think that. And, people are so easy to put a limit on you, like without knowing you or without knowing how much you can learn. And I'm not saying that, like, I think it's not just specific to me, but it's very specific to like everyone. I think I've become empowered by someone telling me no. And that's happened sometimes. And I've learned to use that as juice instead of as a water on my flame. I'm just great with these like analogies, but I feel like, and you were asking me about my lesson learned, and I was like, the versions of lesson learned in my head are kind of like Morgan Freeman style Hallmark versions. Because my inner monologue is a little bit like that. But two big things that I do want to call out is that I think it's also important to think about the why. Like, what is the bigger goal?
Mm-hmm.
What am I trying to do? Is there one? Does what I'm doing address one of the bigger goals that I've defined? And if it doesn't, like if it's not like that you're learning, or if it's not that you're doing something positive or where you want to, or towards where you want to end up, then is it worth it? I was fortunate that this ended up, I don't know if in the moment it felt that way, but it really was something that helps me towards my goals. Another thing is that every misstep is really an opportunity. And
100% agree.
yeah, and after every process or loss or, week or month or win, reflection has really helped me understand the factors that led to the outcome, whether they were controllable or not.
Yep.
I did the same thing when I got this job. I was like, how did I get it? Like, was it my capability that got it? Or was it just like right time, right circumstances? And most of the time the answer is it's a combination of everything.
Right.
But what did I do? Like, how did I make things happen? And can I keep making things happen in my future?
And the answer is yes, Pallavi.
Yes.
Yes. The
Yes.
answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
All those folks that are tuning into our interview, take these lessons learned and push yourself, right? Don't put yourself in a box. So appreciate you sharing that. I do. And I think it's even more important for women to share that, because it's not something that in the past, at least my experience with corporate, hasn't lended itself to that. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
All right. So we're going to get into the final part of our interview. Okay. What are some of the money tips you want to share with our audience? Obviously, I created this because women in tech, women in financial services share a lot of similarities as far as culture and whatnot. But also, I feel like they have women in general, women in tech really have a good hold on their finances. And so I'm sure you've learned something along the way. I always share the Penn State story about how we didn't have a lot of money growing up, right? So my parents never sat down and really talked to me about money. And when I went up to Penn State, I was super stoked because you could get this credit card with the lion on it, and they gave you a free t-shirt, but I didn't know how it worked, right? And so fast forward, graduation rolls around, and I have like $7,000 in credit card debt, right? So lesson learned was do some
That's the
research,
biggest scam out there.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But
absolutely.
But maybe what something, like you said, something that was a misstep that you now has become an opportunity. Maybe, I've made every mistake in the book, and I'll be the first to admit it, but you learn from them. And, that's why I do what I do, because I want to help people before they make those mistakes. So.
And that's so valuable, I think. Not keeping your secrets on success. Like, how did you get there? What are you doing to continue the path and the journey? And I also didn't come from, I was born in India and I came to the US with my parents. I am now a citizen. I took the test. Like, I didn't come from a family that understood the steps you need to take to be successful. Not there are any exact, formula, but there are things that you can do to have steps to get you there. And I don't even know if I knew really how important a social security number was, and how much it's tied to your credit and how important your credit is. And so I did the same thing. I had a lot of credit card debt, and I kept paying that monthly minimum and accruing interest.
And it never goes down.
It doesn't go down. Funny thing is, when my first credit card had a limit of $300, and I called the credit card company the next month, I was like, so I've reached my 300. When am I going to get the other 300? I didn't know.
I didn't. And then the best part is you get the bill in the mail, and you're like, oh, I guess they want payment.
Yeah. And there's a lot of scrambling, and I'm still at points scrambling, but my favorite thing to do now is utilize Intuit's resources.
Yep, they have a lot of good ones. Yep, I'm a big fan of mint.com. Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of Mint. I can go there and categorize, and sometimes the first step is just to track things down. Where's your money going?
Yep.
And you might not think about it in the moment or a week later, but at least you have the track of it, and you can evaluate why you didn't save as much this month, or why you don't have why you're getting an overdraft alert. I am so grateful and so blessed to be a little bit past that point in my life, and I hope I never have to get back to it, but Mint has helped me do it. This is not sponsored, by the way, but
appreciate you giving the legal disclaimer.
Yes. And other thing is that I have multiple bank accounts for savings. And on top of that, I have learned from somewhere, I don't know where it was, but it was some good resources to automate your life. How much can you automate? And one of the things you can automate is saving.
Absolutely.
And I have one for bills and savings, and then I have different ones for different long-term budgets. So every month when I get paid, I basically don't really look at it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but essentially it's because everything goes into the right accounts. So it's automated every month. And then my bills are pretty consistent, and they extract from the respective account that it needs to. And that has been such a relaxer. And I also recognize that your audience may not have a very consistent paycheck, or may not have a form to do that. And I just think it's baby steps. Like, you don't have to be automating that part of your life, but can you automate $5 or $1 moving from one account to an account, another account? And the snowball effect really helps.
I mean, Pallavi, are you available to teach my next class? Because those are the first two sessions. One is where's your money going? And the second one is all about paying yourself first. So, I mean,
I am so happy to share as much as I can. I feel like I was so nervous in the past to share, or sometimes everything feels like a competition. But if you ever need help, if you ever need brainstorming content, or if you need a substitute teacher, I'm here for you.
Appreciate that. I do appreciate that. So, as we wrap up here, tell us where we can find you and maybe an ask that you have for the audience.
Sure. Well, first thing to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. I constantly stalk my favorite people, and I am very happy to meet with people and learn more about them. And so LinkedIn has been a great tool for me and a great networking resource. On top of networking, in terms of what I love for people to do is reach out, honestly. I'm open to meeting other people in similar or different lines of work. I'd love to meet females who've had some hardship and have learned from their experience in the world and would love to share. I would love to meet people who feel like they've had it all, and want to share like what they've learned along the way. I think my biggest hope from having this type of connect and having this kind of visibility is to increase my understanding of the world and the place we're in, and think about how I can contribute more. And that only comes with the relationships. So I would really love to increase my my circle.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that for two reasons. First, I think women are conditioned to think it's taboo to talk about extremely private moments, whether that is around money, relationships, career, whatever that may look like. And then the flip side, I had a little networking event last night, and one of the gals who came and I've known for a long time came, and she's like, I don't want to boast, but, and she listed all these wonderful things that were happening to her. And we were all like, please brag, like we want to celebrate your successes. And so I think what you just said goes both ways, right? So don't be afraid to ask for help, share your stories, because your story can help somebody else learn a lesson, right? But on the flip side, don't ever hesitate to show what accomplishments you've had or what you're just generally excited about. So I do appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, and I'm an excited person. I get very excited about just like a lot of things. But the biggest thing that I get excited about is learning from people. And so I plead for people to reach out to me, add me on LinkedIn, tell me your story, what is going on. And speaking of stalking, and again, for the police folks that are watching this, it's not real. It's more
that's social media
interest.
Creeping.
Yeah, it's more interest, but I bet that's what all the stalkers say.
You're gonna go fishing, aren't you?
Yeah, I would just say that I'm going through your network as well, and this series has opened me up to different viewpoints that, like you said, I might be the youngest person in your series, and I have a lot more to learn, and you've provided an amazing platform for me to just start with, and I end up stalking your profile. So thank you very much, Mel.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. I would say, please, use me as a resource. If I can make a personal introduction to any of those women, you'll have the pleasure of meeting them in events going forward when we have reunions a couple times a year. I'm always lead with how can I support? How can I help? I believe that putting that in out there in the universe comes back in spades. So I'm going to go
Yeah.
ahead and close out our conversation today by saying thank you, Pallavi, for being here. I've really
Oh, absolutely welcome. Thank
enjoyed our
you so much.
conversation, and I wish you a good evening.
Thank you. You as well.
All
Stay
right,
warm.
take care.